Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Thank you for joining me here on Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We're looking at the language of Matthew chapter 24, 29 and following, in which Jesus said, immediately after the tribulation of those days. What days were those? The days of the abomination of desolation that Jesus said his apostles would see. In the time of the great tribulation, and which Jesus said, when you see the abomination, then you flee to the mountains. Something the apostles would experience. Now, folks, that alone demands that the language of Matthew chapter 24, 29 and following was something that belonged and would be fulfilled in the lifetime of the apostles. I mean, when you see, flee. When you see. And immediately after, not 2,000 years later, and not, hey, you know what, at some future generation, at some future time, some generation in the future, they'll see these things, and they'll flee. Supposedly, I guess, I don't know how it's going to work. If Americans or South Americans or Russians or Chinese see the abomination of desolation in the future's paradigm, I don't know how in the world they're going to flee Judea. Do you? You see the issue here? I mean, people that are trying to take these passages out of their historical context are absolutely abusing the passages. Now, yesterday I introduced to you, and we discussed a little bit, Isaiah chapter 13. We continued our discussion. I suggested to you that we are going to take a look now at Jeremiah chapter 51. Now, once again, remember, Isaiah chapter 13 was written somewhere around 701 BC, and it predicted two destructions of Babylon. One, at the hand of the Assyrians, that God in chapter 10 had very clearly said he had appointed them as the instruments of the destructions that were taking place at the time. And thus, 15 years within the time of Isaiah chapter 13, verses 1 through 13 and 14, guess what? Babylon was destroyed by the Assyrians. But then the Lord looked beyond that to a greater destruction, and at a time when Babylon would have achieved world prominence. You have to understand that in 701 BC, Babylon was not the dominant world empire. Were they growing? Were they on the ascendancy? Yep, sure were. But Assyria is the top dog. And they destroyed Babylon within 15 years. But once again, Isaiah looked beyond that, and he looked to the time of the Medes and the Persians, verse 15 and following. And the Lord said he was going to raise up the Medes, and he was going to destroy Babylon. Well, that's recorded for us, and maybe I should more accurately say it's echoed and reiterated for us by the prophet Jeremiah in Jeremiah 51. Now, Jeremiah 51 was written somewhere between, the ascendancy of Zedekiah until his deportation to Babylon. He ruled from 597 BC to 586 BC when he was deported, when he was carried off in the final siege, the capture, and the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Now, Jeremiah chapter 51, absolutely fascinating chapter, by the way. I told you yesterday, and I hope you've read it. Jeremiah chapter 51 is a prophecy, but it is written in the prophetic present tense. It is written in many of the verses as if it had already happened, but it's spoken proleptically. In other words, it's spoken as if it was already real, but yet it hasn't happened yet. In Isaiah 51, behold, I raise up against Babylon and against those who dwell in Leb-Chemi a destroying wind, and I will send winnowers to Babylon, who shall winnow her and empty her land. For in the day of gloom they shall be against her all around. Against her let the archer bend his bow, lift himself up against her in his armor. Do not spare her, young man. Utterly destroy all of her army. Who's this against? Babylon of Jeremiah's day. Verse 5. The Lord reassures Judea and Jerusalem that in spite of the coming horror, which began, by the way, in 606 BC, with the initial invasion of Judea by Babylon and the Chaldeans, the Lord wanted Israel to know, wanted Jerusalem to know, Israel is not forsaken, nor Judah, by his God, the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. In other words, the Lord was saying, okay, you've been plenty guilty of sin. I am going to punish you, but you are not completely forsaken. Now notice, verse 6, this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He shall recompense her. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunk. The nations drank her wine, therefore the nations are deranged. Babylon has suddenly fallen and been destroyed. See, that's the prophetic present tense. A prophetic past tense. A proleptic statement. It hadn't happened yet, but it was sure to happen. All right. Wail for her, take balm for her pain, perhaps she may be healed. Verse 9. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go everyone to his own country, for her judgment reaches to heaven, and she is lifted up to the skies. Notice that language. She is exalted to the heavens. We'll see that language later. Verse 11, make the arrows bright, gather the shields. The Lord has raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his plan is against Babylon to destroy it, because this is the vengeance of the Lord. Wait a minute. You see, this is Isaiah 13, 15 and following. The Lord will raise up the Medes against Babylon. And now, that was over 100 years in the past for Jeremiah, but now the Lord is saying, I'm going to raise up the Medes. And I'm going to destroy Babylon. Verse 12, the Lord has both devised and done what he spoke against the inhabitants of Babylon. Well, once again, it hadn't happened yet, but it's not far off. It's about 70 years off, but that's still on the horizon. Your end has come, the Lord announces to Babylon. Now notice, verse 16. Yeah, I'm skipping over a lot for time's sake. When he utters his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens. He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightnings for the rain. He brings the wind out of his treasures. The Lord is announcing there is a flood of destruction coming on Babylon. Verse 20. The Lord speaks of the armies that he has chosen. If I'm understanding this correct, you know, the narrative here, the flow of the language is a little bit difficult to follow, whether he's speaking of the Medes or whether he is speaking of Babylon in the past tense, how he had used them to accomplish his purpose. Be that as it may, you are my battle axe and weapons of war, for with you I will break the nations in pieces. With you I will destroy kingdoms. With you I will break in pieces the horse with its rider. With you I will break in pieces the chariot and its rider. Well, again, it's a little bit difficult to know whether he's speaking about the Medes who are going to destroy the Babylons, or whether he's speaking of Babylon as his past chosen instrument to destroy nations. It's difficult to know. Be that as it may, verse 24, I will repay Babylon and all the inhabitants of Chaldea for all the evil they have done in Zion in your sight, says the Lord. I am against you, O destroying mountain, who destroys all of the earth, says the Lord. I will stretch out my hand against you, roll you down from the rocks, and make you a burnt mountain. Verse 27. Set up a banner in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call the nations against her. Araphat, Menai, Ashkenaz, appoint a general against her. Cause the horses to come up like the bristling locust. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes. its governor and all its rulers, all the land of his dominion, and the land will tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without inhabitant. The mighty men of Babylon have ceased fighting. They have remained in their strongholds. Their might has failed. They became like women. They have burned their dwelling places. The bars of her gate are broken. The fall of Babylon is on the horizon. But I want you to notice the universalistic nature of the language. They've destroyed the earth. They destroyed all the nations. And now all of the nations are gathering together. Oh, but wait, all of the nations are gathering together under the banner of the Medes. Once again, pardon me, this can't be talking about, quote, Babylon, unquote, of Revelation. This is a historical event against historical Babylon in Iraq, what we call Iraq today. And it took place within 70 years. Now, I'm going to have to stop right there. We will continue this tomorrow on Thursday as we continue to look at Isaiah 51 in light of the language of the destruction of heaven and earth. Remember, Isaiah said that in the destruction of Babylon, the sun would be darkened, the moon would not give its light, the stars of heaven would fall from the sky. Well, guess what? Babylon fell, but that language was not fulfilled literally and physically. This is apocalyptic language. Thanks for joining me. Be safe. I'll see you on the flip side.